Hi everyone, welcome back to part 3 of my interview with Dr. Tim Lau, the happiness doctor. In part 1, we talked about what happiness was all about. In part 2, we talked about how pain and suffering and the choices we make can be part of our happiness. And now in part 3, we're going to dig into a little bit more about relationships and love and all that good stuff. So one of the things that you talk about in your presentation is having balance in your life and a unity of life and something called the flow channel. So I wanted you to maybe explain a little bit more about that.
Sure. You know, I think in psychiatry, one of the dangers we have is pathologizing things. And, you know, I think it's hard for us to say we understand mental illness if we don't understand what mental wellness is. Most wellness programs in companies and universities are usually mental illness awareness programs. But the good ones are ones that look at balance in life.
Okay.
So there's something called the wellness wheel that includes different elements, like it looks at your emotional health, your financial situation, your physical self, your social self, your spiritual side to things. So it's in these programs, what they try and do is make sure that you have balance in those different areas. Because we realize, I think intuitively, but also from our own experience, that if you're skewed too much in one area, you end up leaving something out. So it's important to have balance in our lives. And I think that's it's a good message that those programs have.
Okay.
I may have missed the first part of the question.
I want to know about flow channel because
Yes.
I was reading your and I didn't understand what a flow channel was. So I want you to tell me about that.
The concept of flow comes from Mickey Csikszentmihalyi.
Okay.
He was a professor of psychology from Chicago. And his work focused on this idea of matching your challenges to your skills. So in life, if you have too much of a challenge and too little skill, you'll have anxiety or worry. But if you have too little challenge and too much skill, you have apathy and boredom. So the flow channel is right in the middle.
Okay.
So where it's matched to your abilities are matched to your challenges. And what he talks about in achieving what he calls flow is in this process of fully emptying yourself into your work. It's almost like that self-forgetfulness we have in relationships. It's being able to forget yourself into your work. You get immersed so much that you forget everything else.
Okay.
So it can happen at this point where you're fully matched to your capacities. And that's, you know, something missing in many companies is engagement and feeling like you are valued, that you belong, and that you're contributing to your potential.
Okay.
Really, we want people to, and not just in companies, but with our own children, our own selves, we want to strive and reach towards our potential.
Okay. And you also talked about having a purpose, right? Having a big picture view of your life. How does that relate to helping us be happy?
Well, I think in our busy lives, we get so caught up in things. We're so busy, we actually forget what we're doing or why we're doing it. And I think the question of the why is what transforms our life from an accident into something meaningful. You know, I think everyone has that experience of just being so busy they forget why they're doing it. They take on more and more things and they've lost the focus. You know, people are working harder and harder to have bigger and bigger houses, but the houses are empty because everyone's working trying to pay for them.
Right.
So if we lose track of why it is we're doing, what it is we're doing, it loses meaning. I think the whole idea of the why or the purpose is what transforms our life. Okay. You know, I think when you think of the things that you do in your day, whether or not it's taking out the garbage or doing dishes or doing something for someone else, if we are able to apply a why to that, it transforms it from something that's just a menial thing or something you're doing because you have to doing something purposeful and with love. You might do it anyway.
Okay, so if I tell my teenage son that he should take the garbage out with love, that'll make him happy as opposed to just doing it because I say so?
Well, you might insist that he does it and he has to do
Right.
it anyway.
Yeah.
But if your teenage son decides at some point that he takes out the garbage because he loves his mother, it becomes an act of love and not drudgery.
Right.
Like, he might still have to do it. And that's my point, is in our lives we still have to do it. We still have to live our lives, but we can transform it just by an act of our will. That is how we transform our lives, is with purpose.
Okay. And so that going forward with love into everything I do is going to help me transform and be happier.
Yeah, I think love can be the reason. I mean, we can have other reasons too, but the reasons are what what powers what we do.
Okay. So one of the things that you talked about before with the flow channel was really getting immersed and involved in your work. Then, so how do you balance that out with family and relationships in your life so that...
Well, the work I was referring to was the work of Mickey
Right.
Csikszentmihalyi. I think the forgetfulness is just a sign that what brings us misery usually is self-absorption.
Okay.
So if you can forget yourself, that's usually when we're happier. You know, I think my patients, when they are struggling, they're usually thinking about themselves. And when they start to recover, they start talking about other people and about other people in their lives, or even our medical team. So we have this experience in our lives of misery when we are inward focused. So both are examples of ways of overcoming this self-absorption.
Okay. And so just, I guess, to sort of wrap up the bundle, if you could give someone one or two pieces of advice that you've learned over your career that's not done yet, right? You still have lots of years left to learn more things. But what would those things be, like, if you were going to wrap up what your patients have really taught you in terms of wisdom?
Well, I've actually asked my patients sometimes when they're dying what they would have changed in their lives, okay, looking back. I have that opportunity because as a psychiatrist, I have the chance to ask them what's really meaningful. And the two things that they have said to me consistently over the years is they wish that they had spent more time with their family. I mean, no one says, I wish I had gone for that promotion, or I wish I had earned a bit more money. The second thing is they wish they had had more children.
Okay.
So,
and why is that? I know you talk a little bit about, I was just reading some stuff you'd written about, as you know, what the best age is for happiness and how children impact that. So I just thought maybe you could comment on that a little bit.
I think a lot of young parents are scared by the U-shaped happiness curve that people sometimes talk about,
okay,
or write about. Basically, it's kind of like in your middle part of your life, it's kind of takes a dip.
Okay.
I think when you look at it, the studies are actually a bit controversial because there are studies in both directions about what it's like when you have young kids. But for sure, you're more stressed. You know, you're not sleeping. Financially, it's more stressful. I think if you were to look at like a U, it would probably be more like a zigzag U.
Okay.
So you have more ups and downs,
okay,
more highs or lows.
Okay.
I think children infuse purpose and meaningfulness in our days and our lives, and instill a sense of pride and joy that you wouldn't experience if you didn't have kids.
Okay.
As well, the Max Planck Institute recently published a study of about 200,000 people in 86 countries. And what they demonstrated is children are long-term investment in happiness.
Okay.
So what's clearly seen after the age of 40 is that happiness, using subjective measures, increases with the number of children.
Okay.
So it's like an investment, in a good investment.
A good investment for later on in life.
But
okay.
But those are the subjective measures.
Right.
Like we're
right.
talking, when people say happiness is a U-shaped curve, we're largely talking about subjective measures of happiness.
Okay. But I guess in the end, what the conclusion we could come to is that the people in our lives, the relationships we have, are what is really going to drive our happiness at the end of our life.
For sure. The Grant study, which is one of the biggest longitudinal studies, over 75 years, $20 million. They followed about 300 graduates from Harvard, and they found, George Vellon was the lead author in this study, said his final conclusion was that happiness is love, full stop.
Okay.
Because he showed that the things that mattered the most were the relationships in a person's life.
Okay, so on that note, we'll end. So thank you very much for coming in and talk to me about happiness, and that's great. I'm going to be a lot happier now.
Thank you for inviting me, and
okay.
It's a pleasure.
Good, thanks. Thanks so much for watching. Remember to like this video if you do, or share it on any of your social media accounts. I'm Nicole Scheidel, and you're watching a Fit Minds production.